Great. So my colleague Carolyn Lozo, you are on.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn Lozo. I am Chief of the Oil and Gas Branch at the California Air Resources Board, and really happy to have all of you join us tonight. I'd like to share with you 3 efforts that are currently underway at the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, related to emissions from oil and gas facilities. The first effort that I want to share with you has to do with CARB's oil and gas methane regulation, and we're currently going through the process to make changes to the regulation, otherwise known as the Greenhouse Gas Emission Standards for crude oil and natural gas facilities. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the oil and gas methane regulation was adopted by the board, CARB's board, in March 2017 to address methane emissions from both new and existing oil and gas facilities. The regulation builds off of existing local air district rules, and those rules are targeted at reducing volatile organic compounds. And our regulation also includes additional sectors and equipment that are not covered by those local programs. And they usually aren't covered by those local programs because these sectors and equipment emit primarily methane. And so we're interested in it under CARB's rule, whereas local air district rules focus on different pollutants that have a stronger effect on local air quality rather than climate change, which is something we're interested in reducing methane for. The regulation went into effect in January 2018, and over the past 5 years, CARB and the local air districts have been working together to implement CARB's methane regulation. On-the-ground enforcement is typically the primary responsibility of local air districts due to their proximity and their expertise with the facilities within their districts. CARB, however, does retain authority to enforce all aspects of our regulation. Okay, next slide, please. CARB staff proposed amendments to the oil and gas methane regulation for 3 primary reasons. First, CARB is required to make changes to the regulation to comply with the US EPA standards related to California's State Implementation Plan, or SIP. And if you aren't already familiar with what a SIP is, it's a collection of CARB's and local air districts' plans and adopted rules and regulations designed to attain and maintain compliance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. Second reason that we've made proposed amendments to the regulation, CARB soon expects to obtain remote emission plume detection data from methane sensing satellites. That's going to be coming over the next couple of years, 1 to 2 years. This presents a substantial opportunity to identify large emission sources quickly and to mitigate those emissions. And then finally, we propose changes to the regulation for numerous minor changes, mostly to clarify and streamline the regulatory text. And those are proposed throughout the regulation. Next slide, please. So we took these proposed amendments to our board last week on June 22nd, and the amendments were adopted by the board. So just to recap what I've already mentioned, these amendments will better align the regulation with US EPA requirements. They will add a provision requiring repair of emission sources following notification of remotely detected leaks, and that's through satellite data. And then also these amendments make improvements to the regulation based on implementation experience. Okay, next slide. Next, I'd like to give you an update on recent progress under the Study of Neighborhood Air Near Petroleum Sources, or what we call the SNAPS program. Next slide, please. The SNAPS program is designed to characterize air quality in communities that are located close to oil and gas facilities throughout the state. The study examines a community's exposure to pollutants from all sources, including oil and gas production facilities. The study is a multi-agency effort and includes an assessment of a community's health risk associated with exposure to the pollutants that are measured during the study. The first location to undergo SNAPS monitoring was Lost Hills, and the second location is in the neighborhood surrounding the Inglewood oil field. The kickoff meetings, community meetings for the SNAPS monitoring near the Inglewood oil field were held earlier this month, and one of those meetings was recorded. So if you're interested in listening to the conversation that happened during that kickoff meeting, you can find that on CARB's website if you just search for SNAPS. All right, next slide, please. SNAPS stationary monitoring trailers have been located at 2 sites in the Inglewood oil field area. A site on the oil field, first is a site on the oil field next to the Kenneth Hahn State Recreation Area. And there's also a site to the west of the oil field, Marycrest Manor Skilled Nursing Facility in Culver City. These locations provide monitoring equipment both west and east of the oil field. The equipment is housed in trailers capable of monitoring some pollutants continuously and others on a periodic basis. We also monitor wind speed, direction, and temperature. We recently discovered, unfortunately, the need to move the equipment currently at the Marycrest Manor site to another nearby site west of the oil field. We're in the process of negotiating a lease with West LA College, and this is a location that was recommended by the community. Assuming that a lease is in place, we plan to make this move to West LA College either later this summer or possibly early in the fall. Monitoring will continue at the new site for 1 full year. Ultimately, the SNAPS monitoring effort in this area will collect a full year of air quality data at 2 sites in the area, with additional data collected for a shorter period of time at the Marycrest Manor site. Next slide, please. And finally, I would like to mention a recent airborne campaign that was conducted by CARB's research division to detect methane plumes coming from sources statewide, including oil and gas facilities, landfills, and dairies. Campaigns such as this one were carried out by CARB in 2020 and in 2021, and they really help us prepare for receiving similar data from methane detection satellites in the coming years. Operators are informed of plume detection within days of receiving the information and are asked to provide feedback on their inspections and information on their repair of the leaks that are found. This effort is also critical in understanding how we can efficiently work with multiple agencies to share information and pursue the mitigation of leaks. That's all I have to share tonight. Thank you very much. And we welcome your comments and your questions on any of these efforts during the public response portion after all of the presentations are complete. Sarah, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Always appreciate how clear you are. All righty. So now I'm going to go to the next slide. We are going to go to Terry Allen, also from CARB. Terry, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. CalGEM, CARB, and the San Joaquin Valley APCD work together with the Orphan Lamont community to develop the methane task force efforts in the area. From these collaborative efforts between the 3 aforementioned agencies and the community, staff from CalGEM, CARB, and the San Joaquin Valley APCD conducted joint inspections of 68 wells over 3 days. All of these wells were within 3,200 feet of the Arvin-Lamont AB 617 community boundary. Unfortunately, 27 of the 68 wells were found leaking. However, 4 of those wells were repaired during the inspections. As of today, all but 2 of the wells have been fixed and progress is being made on the remaining 2 leaks. Next slide, please. The next step for this task force enforcement efforts include conducting follow-up inspections to ensure leaking wells are repaired. Additionally, this task force is continuing work with the San Joaquin Valley APCD to plan joint inspections in and around the Shafter community. We will continue to engage community so we can address any comments or concerns they may have. Now I'll hand the presentation back to Sarah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, Christina, you want to talk a little bit about contacting the task force?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Sarah. And thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. I know we've mentioned this in past meetings, but we just as a refresher, if you have any questions at all, if you have any comments you'd like to send in, or questions around the work or the presentations, you can always email the Methane Task Force directly at the following email here on the screen, which is methanetaskforce@conservation.ca.gov. For those that are on the phone, there are no spaces. So methanetaskforce@conservation.ca.gov. And then to receive updates as well, we have a listserv. So if you'd like to be added to that listserv, you can email us as well. We'll make sure to send out any announcements around that to those who are interested. Also wanted to take a minute just to remind folks that we do have the Methane Task Force webpage. I know our team is dropping all these links we're sharing into the chat now. And so the Methane Task Force webpage on this site, you'll be able to find past meeting recordings, past PowerPoints. Tonight's meeting will also be posted there along with the PowerPoint. And then we also include, future notices for upcoming meetings. So all of it is there on that page. And so another resource we do have on the Methane Task Force webpage is a summary document of questions we've received, ever since the last meeting we've had to today, or I believe a few days ago. We try to keep it as updated as possible, but we do think, I know maybe someone's questions can also help other folks. So we prepared a summary document. And I know the team is working on having that up, the latest one up tonight. So please do check those questions and responses and resources there for you.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Christina. Perfect. Okay, it's our favorite part of the meeting. And as I look at who's here, it's always nice to see a lot of familiar faces. Cesar, I see your hand. If anybody would like to make a public comment, just use the raise your hand function in Zoom. If you we have one person who's in by phone. If you would like to make a comment, you can just push *9 on your phone and I'll know you would like to speak. For anyone who is on our 800 line with Spanish interpretation, you push *1 to let us know that you would like to speak. We will just, I am not worried about time with the number of folks, but we will start with a 2-minute clock to make sure we get to everyone. And if anybody wants to make more than one comment, if you have more to say than 2 minutes, we're happy to just circle back to you. Because really that's the purpose of us being here, is to hear from you. So we'll do Cesar, then Christina, and then Jasmine. Let's see. Can we unmute Cesar?
Hi, thank you for having me. I have 2 comments, one regarding snaps and the other the leaks in Arvin and Lamont. A few of the folks that were involved, the residents that lived in Lost Hills that were involved in the SNAPS program, also were in attendance for the SNAPS presentation for the Los Angeles area. And one of the things that they kind of shared frustration with around the SNAPS program is lack of transparency around releasing information in a timely manner. I think the folks in Lost Hills have been waiting for around 3 years for that information. And they were also wondering if the folks in Los Angeles are going to have to wait that same amount of time for their results to come in. And secondly, around the methane task force, I'd like to start off by saying that I'm honestly very grateful that they went. There was a refreshing amount of transparency around how many wells were leaking and who the operators were. So I'm happy that information that should be public and readily available is presented in that way and without barriers, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm happy that they were fixed in a timely manner as well, and I don't think that they would have been addressed as urgently had not been for the methane task force. So I'm very grateful for that. And I honestly was expecting them to come in with the same blueprint that they had with the Morningstar leaks and the sweeps of inspections that they did last year, where when there was these explosive leaks in their neighborhood, they went door to door, let people know about them, held Zoom meetings for the most affected neighborhoods nearby. And I'm hoping that they do that along with some of the sampling in the affected neighborhoods in Arvin, Lamont, and Shafter. So again, thank you for coming, and hopefully the methane task force takes that extra step for protecting the community.
Thank you so much, Cesar. So my colleague Jeanette is taking notes. So we definitely have your question. And as Christina mentioned, we're doing this running Q&A. So we are grateful to you and all the, what a great partner you are in supporting us and getting connected to local folks. All right, so Christina, you're next, and I'm going to Jasmine V. Go ahead, Christina. I mean, Christina Scaringe. Is Christina unmuted? There we go. Christina, I'm not hearing you yet.
Good evening. Thanks for
There we go.
Good evening. Thanks for having the event tonight. Christina Scaringe for the Center for Biological Diversity. We are very concerned regarding the ballooning crisis of leaking, aging oil wells in our state. And so I appreciate you having this event this evening. It's a growing financial health, environmental and environmental justice issue that's for too long received too little meaningful attention. The issue is getting more expensive over time, and its cost to our lands, our people, and our state coffers. The longer the state fails to act, the greater the risk to communities, the more it will cost Californians, and the harder it will be to direct industry assets to plug wells and restore degraded well sites. Tens of thousands of oil and gas wells across California sit unplugged and idle, posing grave risks to health and safety, water resources, climate, and wildlife. You've probably seen that recent carbon tracker report that describes the financial disaster that will cost Californians billions unless the state acts quickly to ensure the oil industry meets its legal obligation to pay its cleanup of the mess that it created. But oil companies have set aside less than 1% of the cost to properly plug and remediate their wells. So to be clear, the industry is already past the point where its remaining state oil production earnings can cover the costs of full remediation. That is, we already know that California taxpayers are on a multi-billion-dollar hook to make our lands and air safe again from oil industry pollution. So every new permit issue digs that hole even deeper. An estimated 2/3 of idle wells in California are leaking methane and various other co-pollutants. Drill sites emit known carcinogens and toxic chemicals. So California officials must immediately act to protect the state's people, lands, and air. The state must repair all leaking wells, improve and increase inspections and monitoring to detect and stop leaks, halt all new oil and gas drilling permits, and institute a community protection notification system, as well as 3,200-foot health protection setback zones. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight and sharing your thoughts, Christina. All righty, I'm going to go to Jasmine next, and then Aldo. After Jasmine, I'm going to check in with you to see if there's anybody on the 800 Spanish line who would like to share their thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. My name is Jasmine Vazine, and I'm providing comments today on behalf of the Sierra Club. As we've heard tonight, there are 40,000 idle wells potentially leaking toxic pollutants and methane throughout California. And we've seen the risks of these wells over the last few weeks in Arvin and saw with over 40 wells leaking outside of homes a year ago in Bakersfield.
Jasmine,
Mhm.
hey, I'm sorry. I wonder if you want to talk a tiny bit closer to the microphone because it's a teeny bit hard to hear you.
Thanks, Sarah. I will scoot closer to my laptop. Is this any better? All right. So yeah, we know that orphan and idle wells pose a leak risk, and yet these ticking time bombs threatening human health and safety are just not being inspected or cleaned up at a rate that meets the urgency of this issue. So we're urging that monitoring be increased and prioritized within 3,200 feet of homes and schools and parks to protect Californians living on the front lines of these risks, but also clear notification protocols for communities impacted by leaks need to be codified so that there's a process for agencies and local entities to follow when leaks occur. Arvin High School was not notified about the leaks and held a graduation outside, exposing families to unknown risks and an explosion hazard, which is unacceptable. And the state needs a plan for how to notify folks as soon as these leaks are detected going forward.
Jasmine, I'm so sorry. Will you talk a teeny bit slower for the interpreter?
Yes, thanks, Sarah. And as Christina mentioned, the recent carbon tracker report found that cleaning up all of California's oil infrastructure could cost $21.5 billion, which even with the current allocations from the federal government and the state, this is a huge issue to tackle financially with a looming funding shortfall. California has to ensure that the companies that own these idle wells are cleaning them up now and not putting the burden of these costs on taxpayers. This task force mentioned an expense report on CalGEM's Orphan Well Abandonment Program earlier this year, and we haven't been able to find that report online, but we are curious as to how CalGEM has spent the $125 million the agency received last year to clean up orphan wells, and how the agency plans to protect taxpayer dollars in the face of the exorbitant costs for cleanup that we know are imminent. And I know I'm over time because I'm trying to slow down, but my final comment is just we need common sense setbacks of 3,200 feet from oil and gas infrastructure in communities to prevent crises like those in Arvin from happening in the first place. And we look forward to working with this task force to implement solutions to prevent wells from leaking in the future. And thank you so much for the opportunity to provide comments, and sorry for the tech issue, Sarah.
No, it's totally fine. We can also always circle back to you. So I'm about to go to Aldo to check in. Thank you so much, Jasmine. And then after that, I'm going to go to Justin, Molly, and then Colin. So Aldo, do we have, again, anyone on the Spanish language phone line? You would push *1 to let us know you would like to share. Aldo, anything?
Sarah, there's no one who wants to speak right now in the Spanish line.
Got it. Thank you. And then just go ahead. Okay. And then as a reminder for the person on the telephone, if you wanted to make a comment, you would push *9. All right. So Justin, you are up.
Hi, thank you for your work. I'm wondering if the state has considered a program like CERCLA with the Superfund tax on fossil fuels to allow for the accumulation of funds so that the state taxpayers not having to pay for, these oil companies that had record profits in the last year. And if they're only reserving 1% of their income, we're definitely going to be on the hook for that. I'm wondering if the state has considered any solutions such as CERCLA with the previous Superfund tax and or increasing the definition of hazardous waste to include all these fossil fuels that are mixed with countless other things. Thank you. Oh, and also, are there any private actions of nuisance for any of these spills? Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. We appreciate you sharing those ideas. Molly, you ready?
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly, and I live in Ventura County. I'm calling in to express my concerns about the oil wells that were recently found to be leaking methane. Events like this pose serious dangers to our communities and climate because they're an example of a bigger statewide problem. I implore California officials to make sure that all of the leaking wells are immediately repaired, the tens of thousands of idle wells across the state are properly plugged, and that monitoring and inspections for these methane leaks are improved and increased, as well as notifying all of the corresponding community members. I also implore California officials to halt all new oil and gas drilling permits and to adopt a 3,200-foot setback to protect homes, schools, and other sensitive sites. One study estimated that 2/3 of idle wells in California are leaking methane, and this is an extremely harmful greenhouse gas that is 80 times as potent as carbon dioxide. So this is a very serious issue, and it means a lot to me. So I'd really appreciate if California officials got a handle on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. I'm so glad you could come tonight. Colin, you're next, and then Erica, you'll be after Colin. Let's get Colin unmuted. Perfect. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for hosting this meeting. So my name is Colin Muir. I'm an independent consultant with a background in the industry, and I think the amount of information that's available is fantastic. I think one of the challenges is the ability for the average person to access it. So what I've done is I've taken all of the violation data, all of the well data, and I've created an application that is available on my website at www.cjmpc.us, which allows any user to enter their address and be able to look at all the violations and all of the wells within 3,200 feet up to a mile of any address. And this information is all coming from CalGEM. It's all the violation data. You can look at the Orphan High School, and it will pull up and provide detail of all the violations that are part of the subject to be rectified. And I encourage folks to use it. It's completely free. I'm trying to help my fellow citizens. Again, it's www.cjmpc.us. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for being here tonight, Colin. All right, Erica, you are next. Let's get you unmuted. There we go.
Great, good evening. Thank you so much. So this is Erica Blyther. I'm the City of Los Angeles Petroleum Administrator. Thank you so much for hosting this. And I'm going back to SNAPS. I believe in 2018, CARB designated 4 communities to receive SNAPS, and one of them was South Los Angeles. And I wonder where we are on, I guess, the time. I know, of course, this was pre-pandemic, and so there's been a lot of changes, but just wondering where Los Angeles is and South Los Angeles on receiving that monitoring for SNAPS. And I guess it's more questions and comments, which I know you can't answer right now. But also, I believe there's going to be an update on the orphan well screening methodology from CalGEM, and I just wonder when that would occur. And I thought that was going to be part of this meeting. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate you. Okay, anybody else want to speak? Let me just also acknowledge with these kinds of public meetings, it's always a little bit awkward when we aren't answering questions. So it isn't that we're pretending some folks that are asking questions. We're just, our format we're doing tonight is to be taking in information, and we aren't doing direct Q&A, but we are doing it through our online document. And there's lots of you that we can also follow up with by phone. Oh, good. We have another person, Joshua. Joshua, you're up.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for hosting this. I just wanted to echo, my name is Joshua Yeager. I'm actually a reporter with Valley Public Radio. We're the NPR affiliate in the San Joaquin Valley. I just wanted to echo Erica's comments regarding the Orphan Well program. It's been quite difficult to get a hold of anybody at CalGEM, just as a reporter, to answer some of these questions. And I was wondering if you could maybe drop an email address or phone or contact info in the chat for somebody with the Methane Task Force, just to answer a few follow-up questions from tonight. that would be appreciated. I know you can't really answer specific questions, and I'm a little bit hesitant to use this time as the public's time as a reporter right now, but I just wanted to flag that if possible. Again, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure, we're happy to do that. We'll definitely do that in the chat. Okay, Karen. Let's get Karen unmuted. Welcome, Karen. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Sarah, and I appreciate being able to address all of you, and I appreciate the comments that have been made and the work that's been done. So much more transparency than, say, 10 or 15 years ago when we were really in the dark. So I'm a member of the Asthma Coalition of Kern County and of the California Nurses for Environmental Health and Justice. And so I'm concerned that with methane leaks in particularly the South Valley, we have had indoor levels of methane and other BETS gases that were explosive levels. And I would like to ask CARB and CalGEM and the Methane Task Force to please monitor inside some of the buildings, such as inside the school. There is a skilled nursing facility just down the street from the school in Orphan. There are homes that could be monitored if you had permission, so that we could just verify that there are not underground leaks and that our sandy loam soil is not acting as a sponge and then supersaturating and leaking up into the building. So I understand being outside may not be an explosion issue, it's more of an irritant issue, but we don't know what else is leaking and we don't know what is inside the structures unless that is monitored. So just a request, and thank you again for all the good work that you do.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for raising these issues and being here. So I'm looking at our participant list. Is there anyone else? Like there's at least a few of you I see who usually might want to say something. Anyone else want to share? Oh, Monica. Great. Monica, welcome.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yep,
Thank you very much. Hello, CARB team, and really appreciate you having this forum. I am following along with great interest, listening to all the questions, and I'm part of a methane mitigation startup. We received funding from the California Energy Commission Cal Testbed program to develop our technology for methane emissions mitigation. And we are very interested in the orphaned wells and would love to be part of a public-private consortium of some kind to be co-developing along with what is learned about these abandoned and idle wells, so we can make sure that what we're developing meets the needs of the states, the communities, and that we are ready with a tool when you are ready to mitigate. I understand plugging is a high priority, but in some cases, leaks cannot be stopped the way we hope to. So we're looking both at mitigation, meaning just destroying what actually does come out, as well as the possibility of harnessing anything that cannot be stopped from coming out for energy production. So a methane mitigation tool that can produce electricity to go back into the grid, especially in urban areas, is something that I hope is on the radar. It's a brand new kind of technology. So I want to make sure that there's awareness. And this is meant to be a low cost, easy to implement solution that's mass producible and replicable. That's my share and my expression of gratitude for the team that's doing this work. Looking forward to being a part of the solution.
Thank you, Monica.
So I'll say, if anybody's interested in what's being developed, there was a symposium that Cal Testbed did a couple weeks ago, and you can find information about that through the Cal Testbed program. And the oxiparator is the name of the technology, and Prabhu Energy Labs, prabuenergy.com. That's PRAB as in boy, HU energy.com is where you can find more about what we're working on. And thanks.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, I'm going to, I'm happy that I keep having hands pop up. Because since you're here, we really want to hear from you. So Beverly, it's your turn.
Good evening. I'm sorry I was very late. So if you included this in what you presented, please accept my apology, but I would still like to know. So my name is Beverly Deschaux. I'm with the Electric Vehicle Association and among other community organizations such as the Climate Action Task Force of our city. What I'd like to know is why are the oil companies who dug the holes, who dug the wells, and left the leaking methane, why are they not being held responsible? Why is the public having to be responsible? Why is the state government having to be responsible for this? And for all the people who are on the line who are interested, why are we having to deal with it instead of those who were responsible for it?
Thank you, Beverly. So I'm going to ask my colleague, Jeanette, if you could re-drop the link to our Q&A document into the chat for Beverly. Beverly, excuse me, there could be some really useful information in there for you. And then we're taking notes tonight. And if given your comment, and obviously everybody's, it's likely that more information is going to be added in to respond to things that are raised during this meeting. So thank you for being here. And it doesn't matter at all that you didn't come from the beginning. We're happy to have anyone in whatever time works for them. So one more time, let me check in with Aldo in case there is anybody on our Spanish language line who would like to speak.
Sarah, there's no one on the phone waiting to speak right now.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I don't see any other hands. Would anybody else who's on our Zoom like to speak before we wrap things up? All righty, want to go to the next slide? One more. There we are. It's our thank you. Thank you again for being here. Please make sure you're on our listserv so we can get you the most up-to-date information on what is going on. And I'm sure, you know, everybody knows this, but it's always a lot of work getting ready for these meetings. And I'm so grateful to work with all of you who are behind the scenes and those of you who presented tonight. It's a real pleasure. So thank you for being here and thank you, colleagues, and we'll have a good night, everybody.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Is it possible to leave the meeting open so the attendees could collaborate? They're still here?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Good night.